Welcome to the home of Unitarian Universalism in Bismarck, Mandan. In our Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate a wide diversity of beliefs, and we are guided by 7 principles, which can be found on our website. As we gather this morning, we acknowledge that we are in a place with a long history to which Nueta, Hidatsa, Sanish, Dakota, Lakota, Tsitsitsas, Métis, and Anishinaabe peoples all claim belonging, connection, and deep knowledge. And recognizing all our relations here, human and more than human, may we honor who and where we are today and find our way to be in right relationship here. This congregation is a place where we gather to nurture one another, to be supported on our life journey, and to put our belief into action through work in our communities and in the wider world. My name is Karen Faye Thompson, and I serve on the Growing and Deepening Council. I'm also the facilitator for today's service. We would like to extend a warm welcome to any visitors here today. We're glad you're here. Please join us after the service for our virtual coffee hour. We would be happy to answer any of your questions about this congregation or Unitarian Universalism. It's so good to be together this morning. Welcome. In a spirit of meditation, reflection, or prayer, as we deepen into our service and share our opening words for this morning by the Reverend Sherry Woodbury, whose congregation we visited this Easter. Welcome who come in friendship, who long for genuine community. May you be graciously received here as your authentic self. Welcome who come in curiosity, full of questions or simply open. May you embrace wonder and encounter new delights. Welcome who come heavy with fatigue, weary from the troubles of the world or the troubles of your particular life. May you rest and be fulfilled in this sacred space. Welcome who come with joy for flowing rivers and gentle breezes, for changing skies and great trees. May the grace of the world have a lasting imprint in you. Welcome who come with thanks for the altruism of the earth and the gift of human care. May your grateful heart overflow and bless those around you. Come, let us celebrate together this wondrous life. Some Unitarian Universalists have a practice of the empty chair. This chair symbolizes the people who are in our hearts, but who cannot be physically present in the room due to absence or death, or in this virtual time, a lack of technology. Today, the empty chair is for Susan Geike Lyon. We join Unitarian Universalists all over the world in lighting our chalice. We are in good company. If you have your chalice with you, I invite you to turn on your video to share while we light them with words by Katie Gelfand. We light our chalice as a symbol of gratitude as we celebrate the abundance of our lives together. In this sanctuary, we harvest bushels of strength for one another and offer our crop with the hands of compassion and generosity. In the authentic and gentle manner of our connections, we cultivate a simple sweetness to brighten our spirits. May we be grateful for the ways we nourish and uplift each other, for it is the sharing of this hallowed time together that sustains us.
I debated scrapping the service this morning because it feels a little off when we've had so much loss recently. I imagine you're feeling a little bit vulnerable right now. But this sermon is part of our ending well together, and that's important. And this is what it means to be human, to hold everything at once, to hold grief and joy and the mundane in every breath. So we don't carry on in spite of our losses, but we carry on knowing that grief is woven into the fabric. So our time of interim ministry is coming to a close, and we have done a lot in the 2 years. To begin, we said goodbye to the previous minister, the Reverend Karen Van Fossen. Most of you were wrestling with your grief at the beginning. For a few of you, the predominant feeling was anger. And I think that's probably true about every minister in the country. If they do not do something really egregious, we are sad when they leave, when they take their particular flavor of ministry off to the next place. But always there will be a few people who did not find a good match in the current minister, and that is all okay. As time went on, the nature of your relationship with Karen changed. I think you began to sort out your thoughts about the person, often Karen, your friend, and your thoughts about the ministry that happened during Karen's tenure. You were able to take a step back and see what you learned from the ministry. And I think many of you have arrived at a mature place of thinking about the whole and about your time with Karen Van Fossen and what that taught you about your identity as a congregation. It's been gratifying to watch people feel and think their way through that time. I think you're ready now to embody what you have learned. And if we were calling a settled minister right now, you would be ready. Ready because you're no longer trying to find the next Karen clone, but a minister for where you are now. Another early step was to tell the story of this congregation, to surface its history. I think this congregation has been blessed with a generally healthy and positive story. There wasn't a lot of healing needed. There was a long ago minister that didn't work out well, but the congregation seems pretty clear that the difficulty was with that person, not with yourselves and not with ministers in general. That doesn't seem to haunt you. Perhaps the most painful part of your history were some letters that were sent out not that long ago that caused a lot of hurt. The board addressed this hurt and extended apologies. I believe a sincere and responsible effort was made to address the harm done. And this does not mean that all is forgiven, but I do think this congregation learned and will do better going forward. And haven't we been working for 2 years to forgive and extend grace as we learn? On the other hand, your long history of justice work and supportive community, as well as some dynamic religious education for your children, are legacies that you can take pride in. This is a lovely foundation from which to build. In addition to your good works, we learned the story of our founders, people like Joyce Conrad and Betty Mills, extraordinary people who took significant personal risks to bring this fellowship into being. There is a sense that if we could tap into that same kind of passion, this congregation could be a powerful force for good in North Dakota. You've also had some excellent partnerships with other faiths and nonprofits over the years, and there is excitement to create new relationships as we're able to meet in person again. We had a sermon where we pulled together all the threads of your history, and I think there was a sense of awe in hearing it all together. There is so much to be proud of and to build on. You stand on the shoulders of giants. Next, we looked at where we are now. There are a great many terrible things that we can lay at the feet of COVID-19, but perhaps a silver lining will turn to be how thoroughly it blew up church as we knew it. Almost everything we did together came to a halt. Interim ministry is supposed to be a liminal time, a time between what was and what will be, a time for deep reflection and reimagining. How much easier that was to do when we were forced to set it all down and figure out what we couldn't live without. We also took a hard look at the distance between what we say we value and what we are willing to make happen. We took all our observations and created a new governance structure. And of course, the verb is wrong there. Our creative process isn't past tense, created. It's ongoing and will be ongoing always. We are creating our new governance structure. And it's early days. To my mind, this is the most exciting thing you've done. We hope and plan to be on our way to settled ministry, but in the meantime, you're not just sitting on your hands waiting for a minister to save you. You are creating what Unitarian Universalism in Central and Western North Dakota is going to be. Your councils are the work or the ministry of this body. What you do in the councils will tell seekers who you are. The councils will answer the question about why this congregation exists. Your councils will tell people this is who Unitarian Universalists are. This is what we value. This is how we live those values in the world. Your councils are the chambers of the heart of this congregation. This is such an exciting time to be a Unitarian Universalist in North Dakota. The councils are the difference between an aspirational vision and mission and a realized mission and vision. And speaking of which, you articulated your mission and vision in our time together. And you did an amazing job of it. Recently, a small group of us were working on the verbiage for the Pride flyer. Marcy, the office administrator, had found some UUA prose that wasn't sitting well with me. So we wordsmithed it for a while. And then I said, well, what about using our mission or our vision statement instead? Marcy read our vision out loud. And if I was reading the room right, there was a moment of awe and appreciation. Yes, that is what we want to tell the community about ourselves. I love your vision and mission statements, and I believe if you begin to live into them, people will join you. They are a powerful purpose in a world starved for meaning. We also realized we had very little in the way of foundational policy and process in place. These things existed in the past, but the train of succession fell apart somewhere. So your board is working hard to create policy from the ground up, and the councils will then create process. It is taking longer than hoped, but most worthwhile things do. Your policies and your processes are relational documents. They articulate how we're going to be together so that each person matters and has a voice. They will collectively create a covenant of right relationship. You might at some point create a condensed version of your covenant together, and policy and process will inform that statement. Now I'm going to interrupt this love fest with a little bit of a challenge to you to be intentional in your commitments. Right now, most of you are way overcommitted and subsequently tired and miserable a great deal of the time. Stop being overcommitted. Prioritize. Clearly, I think Unitarian Universalism is really important. I've hitched my wagon to this star. When you discern, this faith might not be one of your priorities, but I hope it will be. And here's why. I don't think anything else you might volunteer for is going to be as holistic nor have the same potential. I think of Unitarian Universalism as one-stop shopping. It's here that I find community. I find multi-generational community, and that's rare. I find a community of seekers, people asking the knotty questions of life and ready to be cracked open by the answers they're trying on. Here I find spiritual and intellectual growth. This flies in the face of the numbness and complacency offered by our culture. It is here I'm challenged to grow, to wrestle with what makes me uncomfortable. It's here I find poetry lovers and justice warriors, mystics and doers. And it is in a Unitarian Universalist congregation that I have been asked to stop talking about justice and start doing justice, even though it was really scary. So here I find justice making and community, spiritual and intellectual growth, beauty and wonder. And that's a lot to find under one roof. I value the faith that lives under this roof, and I find it to be worth an investment of my time, talent, and treasure. I'd remind you of the words of Reverend Victoria Safford from her book, Walking Towards Morning. She writes, In a cemetery once, an old one in New England, I found a strangely soothing epitaph. The name of the deceased and her dates had been scoured away by wind and rain, but there was a carving of a tree with roots and branches, a classic 19th century motif. And among them, the words, "She attended well and faithfully to a few worthy things." At first, this seemed to me a little meager, a little stingy on the part of her survivors. But I wrote it down, and I have thought about it since. And now I can't imagine a more proud or satisfying legacy. She attended well and faithfully to a few worthy things. Safford continues, "Every day I stand in danger of being struck by lightning and having the obituary in the local paper say, for all the world to see, she attended frantically and ineffectually to a great many unimportant, meaningless details." How do you want your obituary to read? "He got all of the dishes washed and dried before playing with his children in the evening." She balanced her checkbook with meticulous precision and never missed a day of work. Missed a lot of sunsets, missed a lot of love, missed a lot of risk, missed a lot, but her money was in order. She answered all her calls, all her email, all her voicemail, but along the way, she forgot to answer the call to service and compassion and forgiveness, first and foremost of herself. He gave and forgave sparingly, without radical intention, without passion or conviction. She could not or would not hear the calling of her heart. How will it read? How does it read? And if you had to name a few worthy things to which you attend well and faithfully, I wonder, what would they be? So we have had the example of several women lately whose obituaries read well, women who knew their priorities and attended to them well and faithfully. So I'm challenging you to stop doing a great many things frantically and ineffectually. Just stop. Discern what you want to prioritize, what really matters, then quit a bunch of things, just like that. I hope that enough of you will put this place in your top 3, because it is so clear to me that North Dakota needs Unitarian Universalism. Okay, back to celebrating. I want to point out that the good work we did together was done by individuals. I'd like to list you off and thank you one by one, but I would miss somebody important, and I truly don't want to hurt anyone. So let me just remind you of that old country music song with the line, "Work your fingers to the bone, and what do you get? Woo-hoo, bony fingers." So look around and notice who has bony fingers. There are board members that made church their second job. There are transitions team people who, when asked when should we meet again, replied, "Oh, it better be next week, week after week." There are people who hold no official title, who nevertheless do something for the church nearly every day, and without whom it would all fall apart. There are people who gave money in a tight year, and people who donated things we needed. There are people who quietly mowed the lawn or shoveled the snow or made the repairs. There are fish and plant rescuers. There are people who took on the mantle of technology for Zoom and memorial services because they did not balk at the assumption that they would. There are people who got calls in the night asking for help, who said, "I'm putting on my shoes and coming." There are people who took out garbage and made meals and made phone calls. There are people who facilitated services and who did it as last-minute fill-ins. There are people who organized outside events. There are people who created verbiage and filled in forms. People who took on trainings in General Assembly to be better Unitarian Universalists. In short, there are people, and you are those people, who made everything we do here possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, let's see. Thank you for your bony fingers. Which brings us finally to the other thing we did together. We started to imagine our future. We readied our ship and we set sail. And I think if you remember that the journey is everything you're likely to get, you will fare better. Don't live for that magical day when we have a full-time minister, when the coffers are overflowing, when the roof is brand new and the RE classes are full. It is really important to know where you are heading, to have direction and goals and dreams. Really important. And it is also true that we only have now. So lean into this now and work hard and play hard and be glad to be alive together. Do your few things well and faithfully. So let's end this sermon with gratitude for the work we have done together. Can everyone turn on your video? And now reach over and pat the person next to you on the back. Well done. You have done solid work in these past 2 years, work worthy of celebration. Thank you. When I first arrived, I think the general impression was that interim ministry was a holding place, something to be dispatched as quickly as possible. But once you learned what the process was to be, I think you did a marvelous job embracing this liminal space. You threw your hearts into it, and you got to know yourselves a lot better. It is my deep hope that you will continue to travel this path together and to be more clear every day what your relationships are calling you to do. May you bloom where you are planted.
You gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. You gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you gotta dance. Oh, you gotta dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 Cry. You gotta cry when the Spirit says cry. You gotta cry when the Spirit says cry. When the Spirit says cry, you gotta cry. Oh, you gotta cry when the Spirit says cry. 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 Laugh. Gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. You gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. When the Spirit says laugh, you gotta laugh. Oh, you gotta laugh when the Spirit says laugh. 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 Do you gotta do when the Spirit says do. You gotta do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you gotta do. Oh, you gotta do when the Spirit says do. 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 Wow, now we have to shout. Gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. You gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. When the Spirit says shout, you gotta shout. You gotta shout when the Spirit says shout. 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 Spirit says do.
May my heart be gentle, my mind still and opened, my spirit unshackled, my awareness keen, my conscience clear, my nature giving. May I be a healing energy. May I be of benefit to all. May my life enrich others, and may I know what matters and live in harmony with nature.